it's going to be very casual.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, this is like, I mean,
Welcome
this
to
is
the podcast.
we are literally with a camera on a trash can in an
a
office.
recycling bin.
This is
it's
as
a
casual
recycling
as
bin.
it gets.
Okay.
I think we've really embodied who we are as people
Yeah.
with the tools that
This
we're
is-
using.
All
to
right,
record
let's
this.
get started.
We have the technology. And welcome to another episode of Unsubscribe, the Demand Drive podcast. It is I, AJ Alonso, your host, and I am joined by my co-host today, Alex Ellison.
How's it going?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Great.
It's been a while since you've been on the podcast.
Yeah, I try to stay in the background as much as I can.
In the shadows,
yeah,
just lurking.
lurking.
Alex, we've got a special guest with us today. Mostly special because we're actually all together in the same spot for the first time in a very long time.
And he slept in my house last night.
Okay, well, I don't
On
think
the
the
couch.
audience
On
had
the
to know that. We've got Phil Gerard. Phil, how are you?
I'm great. I'm super excited. It's honor. I mean, honestly, I've been trying to get on this podcast since I started, or since the podcast, the birthing of the podcast. And Alex finally invited me, and I tried to play it cool, as if I wasn't super duper excited about
He said
this
no.
opportunity.
He was like, "No, thank you."
Yeah.
The first thing I said was no.
Smart.
And trying to play it cool, and then I didn't want to squander the opportunity to be on this great podcast.
Yeah.
So
That probably took a lot of confidence to know.
no, it was very easy to tell you no.
I think it was easy for Phil because he has confidence in abundance
Yes.
compared to most people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I knew that even with my no, that you still wanted me. Let's be honest.
Well, that kind of brazen confidence is something that we don't like, and that we're going to have to debunk today. As the Mythbusters are in town, and we're here talking about how brazen confidence and just that kind of mentality is not what you need in sales. It's something else. And Phil, I think you know what we're talking about.
I don't.
No.
What are we talking about?
So we're going to be talking about confidence and how it's not innate in people, but it's something that you can learn. It's a skill that you can build through months, even years of hard work, something you've done, and something you're helping other people do today. So from your perspective, looking at confidence in the sales development role and how that impacts the overall success of a rep, focus of our episode today. I'm excited to jump in.
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah. Oh God. I'm so yeah, absolutely. I think is that the question?
No, I'm gonna ask you a question. I just want to know you were excited.
I am
guess
excited.
The question was, are you excited? You said yes.
Yeah. You can't see it on the podcast for those of you who are listening, but I'm jumping for joy on the simulcast.
We literally have video evidence of this not happening.
Okay. Well, maybe just listen, because I don't want to be made a liar.
Let's have you define confidence. We'll start the conversation with that in your words. What does confidence mean to you? And then what the difference between a confident rep and someone who isn't confident. Geez, I'm losing it already.
Yeah, asking for a definition, I'm not going to give you the Webster Merriam here. I think it's important to differentiate the two of confidence and being cocky, right? A cocky person doesn't really have in my opinion, the sort of like knowledge to back up, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like they are, and it's good sometimes to be blindly confident and believing in yourself, but a confident person, I think that confidence stems from more than just self-belief. I think it comes from putting in the work behind the scenes. And in order to sort of manifest confidence, it requires, like you said, you have to be, so I think self-awareness is a big part that plays into it, recognizing one's own strengths and weaknesses, and really utilizing your strengths and understanding how to leverage them as an SDR to build a process that works best for yourself. So I don't know how you would put that into a concise definition, but I would say that confidence comes from self-awareness. It comes from knowledge of oneself and of one's product.
I was just going to maybe dive a little deeper there and really look at that definition from the perspective of what it means to be an SDR with confidence versus one that doesn't. So like, what are some of these traits you talk about with having the confidence in your product or your team or what have you, that a good rep will have that maybe, and we can go both ways with it too, that either a lackluster and non-confident rep might be missing, or a cocky rep might have sort of overstepped with?
Yeah, I think the confident rep who, from the beginning, it stems from like I said, it's that self-belief and recognition. I think it even starts with looking beyond just the daily goal and looking at the bigger task. So it's not just, am I confident that I can, make 50 phone calls, or it's confident in belief in the organization and what the goal is and what you're trying to accomplish. I think it takes long-term vision to be confident. It's not something that, is a penny candy purchase. You really have to, invest long-term in confidence. And that comes from building a culture of belief in oneself and of the team and product that you're a part of.
Yeah. So from like you on the management side of things, you're saying it really does start with you in terms of like having that idea that you can be confident, you can build this skill up. It's not something that someone just understands, I guess, when they come into an organization. Like you have to lay the groundwork for them and like let them know this is the vision, these are the goals, here's how you get A to B to C.
Yeah, naturally. And I think that you're always going to have people who come into your organization who are excited and eager to sort of, they bring in some experience or they're new and they're green. And personally, I think that, working with a greener rep is kind of like my wheelhouse, because, the old adage like, oh, no bad habits in sales, but they also don't have a history of a company that might have actually kind of taken away from their, their self-worth. I know that sounds dark,
harsh,
right?
Yeah.
But it kind of speaks to like the path of how I ended up here. But, having no company or experience to say, like no failures behind them to get them here, right? Behind them.
Yeah, there we go.
Is a good kind of launching point for confidence, because you're starting with a fresh slate. And I think that that's a really good place to start, really, is building confidences from the ground floor.
So tactically then, how do you build up that confidence? Like what resources do you leverage, both as a rep in that situation, you're at a new company or first time at a company, and you're looking to start that process of building confidence. And then from like the management side of things, how do you enable them to be able to do that?
Yeah, awesome question. I think like short term, you can take your quick hits of confidence, right? Like you're like
the bumps of confidence.
Yeah, straight up though. So like if I'm about to do like a call block or something, like I'll just do like a 10-minute Tom Brady highlight video. And I know that sounds so cliche, Boston sales rep, right? But like just the watching someone as like who is so, the precision that they take in their work, and the accomplishments of Thomas Brady, whose birthday was just the other day.
True.
So August 3rd.
Our patron saint.
And
Alex is not happy.
It's fine. Carry on.
Anywho, yeah. For those sort of short term, I think it's just finding, those like kind of quick hits of confidence for yourself, and like finding that like little bit of like motivation, but to make sure that it's a sustainable level of confidence that you're building. I think what it really boils down to is having a roadmap for people to follow. Like, how do you, what are you trying to get out of this company? And for a company like Demand Drive, I think it's super important for us as managers to understand that we are a stepping stone for a lot of people into getting into that account executive role, or maybe they want to get into marketing, and our marketing team, while growing, there's not a ton of seats there. And then there's good projects and opportunities for people to get exposure into marketing here. Absolutely. But if you're able to understand what a rep wants to do, I think you have a better understanding of motivating them long term, and really getting them to sort of, you know, whatever that next step is for them. So I think that it really does kind of start on, you know, day one of a project, of just having an open and honest conversation of what are you trying to accomplish, understanding what drives and motivates them, and then just finding ways to sort of circle it back on the bad days. Having a clear-cut goal sheet from them in their own words is the greatest way to motivate somebody. If you think about, you know, when you're sending like a prospect email, what's like the number one response rate has to be, I just did the John Barrows training, and he said the highest response rate that you can get is when you quote somebody. So if you send an email with a quote from themselves, because it's their words, they're going to be excited to talk about it. It makes sense to them. It resonates with them. So if you're able to take someone's goal from them and put it back in front of them on a bad day where they might not be feeling well, and sort of reinvigorate them through themselves, it's self-motivation with assistance is really what it comes down to.
Self-motivation with assistance. I like that. Did you do that as an SDR? Did you set up your own, like, I guess, like career goals or pathways when you were looking to build the confidence that you needed to start seeing success as an SDR?
Yeah, so I had clear-cut benchmarks that I thought, and it's funny how much it changes, and that's why these, you know, quarterly assessments are so important. And that's why, you know, I think it boils back down to that self-awareness, and self-reflection to be able to build confidence. So, you know, it's that sort of taking inventory, but yeah, if you're able to put out clear-cut goals of what you're trying to accomplish for yourself, you're making it easier. You know, when you're hitting certain benchmarks, you're able to have more productive conversations with your managers to say, you know, hey, when we started at the beginning of this thing, this is what I told you I wanted to accomplish. You told me this is how I'm going to get there. These are the things that I've done to get there so far, and these are the places that I sort of need help. So, you know, I think it's that sort of mentality within myself that has helped get me into a management position for sure. So I guess advice to anyone who wants to sort of be a manager is think and operate for yourself, like manage yourself, right? And show that your management style yields a product that's worth having, and that is, but you know, through results, through opportunity cost, and past leads, or whatever metrics important to your client.
Yeah, I want to try to sort of take your answer and spin it on the other side really quickly, because I think that's great advice for somebody who's trying to build up that confidence. What do you do if you sort of have the opposite situation where you have a rep come in who's, right, that cocky, sort of arrogant rep who maybe isn't going to listen to you, maybe thinks they know best? Because I feel like that's probably a pretty different strategy to get them, I guess, down to the right level of confidence, right?
Yeah, I think understanding where they're kind of coming from, like, hey, I love the enthusiasm that you're bringing here, and really just trying to sort of like figure out where they're bringing that from, and not that you want, you know, I think that if you have a cocky rep who isn't putting in the work, like, I think that's sort of where you see it sometimes, right? I think that when you see a cocky rep, they're actually probably making up for a lack of confidence somewhere. So they might talk a big game. They might, you know, it's always my last company this, or my last company that. It's like, well, congratulations at your new career here, where the score is 0-0, right? So remembering that, you know, it kind of just having, and I'm okay with having a little bit of a difficult, like, you know, what seems like a feather ruffling conversation with someone, if it helps kind of bring them back down and gets them back on track for really what the goal is. Because if you're telling me, like, you know, like, this is going to be easy, and you're not taking the time to put in the metrics to drive the result, then I'm going to look at that and say, hey, I love your attitude. And that is going to be something that is incendiary on the phone, and it's going to catch fire, right? But you're limiting yourself by actually not having the confidence to get that message out to people. So you need to sort of, I guess, redirect the confidence in yourself into the belief of the company and product that you're trying to sell, and not just making it about yourself, but sort of realigning with the company vision and goal of what what you're trying to accomplish as a team, as opposed to, I'm just the best. I think that kind of answers the question, right?
Yeah.
Is that something, and that belief in that redirection of confidence from a cocky rep, something that you've developed now that you're managing reps? Like, is that something that you believed in as an SDR, or has your viewpoint changed since you're now kind of on the other side of things?
Meaning, at any point was I kind of victim of that thought
Not
pattern?
even just like a victim of that, but like if you saw somebody like a peer who was like overly confident to the point of being cocky, did you think like, hey man, you got to redirect that energy? Like, or were you like, I like that energy, like I'm going to use that?
So this is where it's kind of interesting at our company specifically, is it's hard to kind of follow like leaderboards. I know we have like the whiteboard and stuff like that. It shows on like the result, and I know you can like follow, like we have like our shout outs and stuff like that. But if you kind of just like see the guy in the office who everyone kind of wants to like be that guy, it's hard to it can be a good thing until you look under the hood and realize that it's sort of this facade that they're building. So I think it's kind of good, almost in a way, to see someone like that and think oh, I want to get to that point. But if you do it the right way, then you'll kind of find along the way that a confident person doesn't really need to self reflect. They don't need to peacock in any way, because they sort of let their work do it for themselves, right? And I think one thing that is really hard is taking compliments from people. I think that someone who is doing well and might oh, I don't even know how I'm doing this. Get rid of that. Exactly what you're doing, and we're praising you for it. And the reason we're asking and showing this up is because we want to take what you're doing and see if it's scalable for other people, right? And that's one of those things where when you're doing well, people have this I'm speaking so about myself right now. I am horrible at taking compliments. I'm so bad at it.
No, you're great at it.
He's doing it. He's doing the thing. Oh, get me off. Pause it. No, and sort of, a confident person will take a compliment and say yeah, I do deserve that because I'm putting the work in, so yeah.
In your opinion, how important is confidence to the SDR role?
I've been quoted as saying, I think it's one of the most important things. I am changing the quote slightly. Before we started recording, I said it's the single most important thing. And I don't want to end up like bulletin board material here. I think that a rep who is confident in their ability you don't need to be a product expert. You need to know about the product, and you have to be confident in your ability to facilitate a conversation. I think that if you can get those two things working together, of really going through the training and understanding the process and being able to kind of talk yourself up at the beginning. I think that self-talk is one of those things that is kind of lost upon people, where you look a little crazy.
Yeah.
But I think it's extremely important to be coupled with other things. And what it really comes down to, it's just, we love cliches in sales. How can you not love a cliche? It's not letting the high get too high and the low getting too low in confidence. That's probably the key takeaway is that you can believe in yourself, and you can understand that things aren't going to always go through the way that you want them to, and you can visualize as much as you want the perfect call and understand that might not be the track that it follows. But the confidence to put a bad call behind you and not dwelling on it is going to serve you it's going to pay huge dividends for you.
Yeah. I think one of the funniest isn't the right word, but one of the most interesting answers I've heard to how important is confidence to this role in general.
Yeah.
It was talking with an SDR here who he said, I wasn't confident until I owned the fact that I sucked. And when I knew that I sucked, I started getting way more confident. So for him, it was like confidence meant nothing. He was like, I could be the most confident rep in the world. It wouldn't matter. And then he was like, actually, I kind of suck at this. And then realized like, oh no, I need to be confident to be good at this job, just not in the way that I thought I had to be confident. And like reframing it that way changed his tune entirely. So for him, confidence was like a 0 out of 10. And then it became a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, that's a quick metronome flip there for him. But
the high and the low.
Yeah, right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the sauce is start at 0, get to 10, right? No, I think that, and I think that builds into the kind of what we talked about at the beginning is the self-awareness. And that comes from like reflection. Like there's this misnomer that you have to be like this extrovert to like be good at sales. And a lot of introverts will excel in this role because I think they're generally a little bit more process driven.
Yeah.
And maybe where they're lacking it, the belief is sort of in their ability to talk to people. But if you have them build a process that's strong for them, and I think that that's a big thing, is encouraging reps to do what suits them. I have a rep right now who's like, I'm making like 85 calls and I'm like connecting with nobody, and I really think that I should be focusing on emails. And I'm like, yeah, I totally agree with you. I was like, thank you for telling me this. Our metric for our client, it's a new client we want to serve and make sure that we're hitting the metrics, is 50. Make those 50 calls. And then as a side project and a side hustle for yourself, send 30 super specific tailored emails that you feel really strong about, that go kind of against the cadence. You're not doing anything wrong. You're still doing your job. You're prospecting. You're hitting. You're trying to prove another way to hit metrics that works for you, in belief in your process while working with, not just saying, oh, I'm not doing what they told me to because I think it stinks. That's not going to fly. Do what you're told, and then go a little bit extra and have that belief in yourself that like what you're doing might be better, and sort of running with that.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things we talk a lot about, how SDRs should be doing more experimentation, A/B testing, trying new things, because a lot of them, right, are just given a template and they start sending it out. They're given a call script, they don't go off it that much, things like that. But I think you're hitting the nail on the head there with a lot of the confidence is in the manager enabling and providing the right resources for these reps to be confident that they can go out and send 30 lackluster emails and not get in trouble for it, because they're just trying something new. And you wouldn't know that they're lackluster emails. I mean, you check them first, but it might look good and just like there's no results. Well, you still learn something from that, but they might see, oh, nobody responded to the email. That was a waste of my time. When in reality, that's just another step towards them growing and developing as an SDR.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's encouraging different ways to sort of get to the right process. And if you figure out the right process on like your first step and your first go of it, I highly suggest you write a book. Just like the One Try Millionaire, because there's no way that you can sort of like get to that point without taking the steps before. I forget who I was listening to, a big sales audiobook guy. But I think it's the compounding events that lead to a sale. So people will be like, oh man, like how'd you close that sale so quickly? Our process is, our average buying cycle is like 90 days and you close that contract in 15. It's like, well, I didn't close it in 15. It took me 28 years to close that deal. Everything that I've done up until this point was me refining myself to be able to get to a point to close that deal in, X amount of time. And sort of weeding your process out, just sort of like remembering along the way that you got here for a reason, and that just that in itself should be encouraging for anyone in any role that we have belief in you from the beginning to have you on this team, and that you should kind of have that recognition in yourself as well.
Yeah, I really like, and summing all of this up, I'll ask you for sort of like some last, I guess, like tactical tips to give out. But I think the point that you just made to me really sums up your view on confidence, and that as a manager, as someone who's responsible for a group of people, their confidence stems from how well built the process you give them is. If you give them something that doesn't necessarily, it's not tested, it's not something that you're confident in as a manager to get results, the reps are going to see that and mimic the fact that you don't have a ton of confidence in it. But if you give them something that you've built, you've tested, you understand works, they're going to take that and run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why honesty and transparency in a role is super important. And I have a really good like dichotomy with my manager where I am on the like, I'm still responsible for a quota as a team lead. Like, so I'm still kind of in the trenches, and I can see the viewpoint from the reps probably a little bit better than my manager can, just from a reporting standpoint.
Right.
So they just see numbers kind of on the chalkboard, and then I'm sort of like the relaying the message of like, what do these numbers mean? And sort of like, what is happening,
translating
the
numbers into actual anecdotal evidence.
Right. And, everyone wants to be driven by analytics, but I think it's important to remember that, people aren't just the numbers on the dashboard. There's more to the story than that, which is why I don't believe in baseball analytics. But that's
Moneyball is
another
podcast.
Yeah. They lost in the divisional round. I don't know what you want me to say. They also don't talk about how stacked their pitchers were in that movie, but whatever.
Another podcast.
Sorry. Anywho, and I think that transparency and just sort of being open, like with your reps and saying, that I'm here like with you to solve this. So if it's a process that's new to you, hey guys, as a team, let's figure out if this works, right? Half of you can sort of take this side of the messaging, half of us are going to take this side of the messaging, and as a group we're going to figure out which one of these two things works better, and we're going to kind of meet in 2 weeks about this specific thing and figure out as a team, having multiple heads sort of working towards that is going to help.
I like that. Any last words that you want to say about confidence, about imparting from the management layer onto the SDR layer, tips, advice?
Yeah, I think just being honest with yourself has been, for me, like in my personal life and in my career, I think where I've experienced the greatest growth is in being honest with myself. That self-reflection, it is one of the hardest people to tell the truth to is yourself. It is very difficult to do. But and my suggestion for doing so is kind of, and I can find some writing prompts or something to share, but it's to just get yourself writing, like start writing stuff down of, like I felt bad when I did, and then just literally start writing, and you'll kind of look at that and you start analyzing like, okay, these are the things that like I did that made me feel bad. These are the things that I did today that made me feel good. And it sounds like elementary type, like, like diary taking, but it's so simple. And you eventually just like the pen kind of takes over and you start just like literally like kind of spitting the truth upon yourself. And it's important to capture it on paper to revisit as opposed to just sort of thinking it. So I would say if you want to be confident in yourself, you really have to know yourself. And if you really want to know yourself, you have to be extremely honest with yourself. So that's sort of my advice for building confidence is get in touch with you, the person, and trying to, to bring that to a rep standpoint is getting them to do that, or finding ways to sort of bring that out of them to really, tie a bow on it and say, hey, like this is you. Now that we know who you are, let's sell you who just happens to be selling product X.
Love it.
Yeah.
Great way to sum it up. Phil, thank you for hopping on the podcast. Greatly appreciated. Some solid insight in here for SDRs, for managers, for people in general. I feel like this turned into a self-help thing towards the end, which is great. If people want to learn more about you, see more of what you're doing in the world, where can they find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, great place.
Classic.
I'm trying to be a little better. This is a self-reflection moment for myself about frequently engaging on LinkedIn. I use Instagram as sort of like a personal like diary.
Nice.
I put a lot of things out into like in the world to like help make it real. So I put a lot of stuff like I'm actually planning like my Instagram story today is or not today because it won't be released, but you'll look for it. I'm planning on running a half marathon and I want to share my story and all my training on there just to make it real for myself. So Instagram at pizza_bear with I think 2 R's.
Okay.
You'll find me, Phil Gerard. I'll be the handsome guy in the little picture in the
He
corner.
won't be a bear made out of pizza.
No, that won't
That we
be me.
know
If
of.
you find that account, please share it though.
Well, thanks again for hopping on. This is AJ and Alex for the Unsubscribed podcast. If you want less nasty unsubscribed emails in your inbox, you have to subscribe to Unsubscribe. Get good stuff on here. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.
See ya.
Thank you. Because I say stupid shit a lot.
That's true.
But sometimes I do good.
You
I
spring
do good.
Sometimes I good. I good.
Did you good?
I did good.
You can put the spray bottle away.
Yeah.